Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor
and his cousin
gives you sports betting tips. I am your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates and information, you can find me on Twitter at Professor Sides, and you can find my cousin Jared on Twitter at Cousin Jared. This college football episode covers select games from Week 9 of the 2022 season. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. That's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new. Get your primer and an explanation. Pause if you need to be. Go check that out if you haven't yet. Otherwise, the goals for this episode are to share key information about these games, give you a few things to think on, and explain why certain plays are being made. We never recommend blindly tailing or fading any pick, but rather to hear the justifications and thought processes to make sure you're fully on board with us or against us. Before investing your hard-earned money, we will make a pick on every game, but you should take what you like and leave the rest. Remember, there are no locks in gambling, so we provide our loves, likes, and leans. It is A, B, and C grades, indicate our confidence level with respect to scaling wagers. However, please understand that good and bad variance will occur, so as much as we'd like to see it will be profitable each and every week, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, I told the people last week, I said I had an idea. And we texted, I had an idea. What if we just collaborate on our picks? Because I really thought we were right there, but just combining our brains and kind of a filtration process so that we could each kind of be like, you're a little crazy on that one, or give ourselves the right boost, needed to make plays. Sometimes it was just getting over the hurdle to make plays, right? We'd seen that through the first half of the season where you would talk about things and Jake would be like, yeah, you should probably play that, and it would hit. So some of it was just that putting our brains. Well, it worked pretty well last week.
It did.
I'm excited.
I can't believe how well it worked last week. How many units were we up again?
I think it was 27, something like that.
37.
I don't know. Yeah, 27 on Saturday, 37 overall. It was something crazy.
Yeah, so an exciting weekend for sure. I'm excited to see how the rest of the season plays out.
Yep. It was a fantastic week. The other thing that I just wanted to make everyone aware of as you're going through this, we are trying to learn. We are trying to kind of tweak our process in this. We will try to do a good job at the end of recapping what our picks are, so that way you can hear it, you can write it down, type it in a sheet if you need to. We also will try to write down and give what our thresholds for A or B grade picks would be on games as well. So we thought last week went really well, but we're not just going to rest on our laurels. We are going to try to improve the process, make it better for you. And it kind of fleshed a little bit more. So each game may last another 30 seconds longer. These are already long anyway. So I feel like if you're with us, you're with us, right? Yeah. The other caveat this week, there's fewer games. And because Jared, as we were going through, there were a lot of things we really wanted to jump on right now. So we've got like a jumbo episode for you right here in episode 1. So I have no idea how long this is going to last. You viewer seeing this, you know how long it is. I feel like it could be forever. Who knows how long it's going to last. Yeah. But again, we will have the time stamps in the description so you can jump forward, re-hit things. But there's a lot of things that we wanted to go ahead and lock in early in the week, a bunch of good numbers. So we're only going to actually have 2 episodes this week. A lot of things in this one, and then our normal one will bring our friend Jake on for our last episode where we'll cover every single game. There's a lot to talk about this week. But before we get to that, some reminders, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free, and if you turn on notifications, you'll miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. We've also got that Patreon page. If you're looking for extra benefits, membership starts at just $3 per month. Get you the play of the days and all the plays that we aren't able to make on show. That's important because today there's a couple we've already talked about, what our thresholds for picks are, things that we kind of might put a couple units on and kind of wait and see what it is. All that's going to be delivered to Patreon. Just $3 per month. Just get you in the door, get you all the extra plays that we aren't able to make on show. It's going to come up for sure on this, and then a bunch of other benefits if you want. So we've got asked about having the picks alongside. I've got the $10 a month package as make your life easier with the shows, ad-free shows, a list of all the picks that we made, early access to the shows. So that's kind of your, like, if you want more out of the show, that's kind of your package. So trying to provide some extra benefits. If you think it's worth it, if you don't, that's fine. We love having you here for the free shows. But if you want a little extra, that's out there for you. But otherwise, we'll get to it here. All lines courtesy of Bet Online. Sign up link in the show description and current as of the time of this recording on Sunday night. So we're going to start off. We're actually going to cover some of the midweek games here. Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern kick, Louisiana and Southern Miss. Louisiana is a 2.5-point road favorite. Total is 42.5. First off, Louisiana back. Maybe. I mean, I feel like they definitely, I kind of been saying this last couple of weeks. I was like, I think they've kind of bottomed out. Now they're kind of back on the rise.
Yeah.
Not as good as last year, obviously, but we at least think we found kind of roughly where they are. Not as good as before, but they at least avoided the bottom, getting out of the triple digits, right? So they at least stayed there. Sideline ranks them 73rd, says they're the better team in this matchup against Southern Miss, who's ranked 81st. Sideline says this should be basically a pick 'em, so a small edge on Southern Miss at 2.5. I'm not sure if I think I want to be on Southern Miss here. I still am not really a huge believer in Louisiana. I don't know if 2.5 is worth jumping at. So I think it's kind of a C plus type pick at 2.5 for me. Maybe we wait, see if it hits 3. Maybe you think 2.5 is worth jumping on. I'm kind of on the fence there. And the total is 42.5. So I will let you talk me into what our play should be for this game.
Well, definitely think that a C grade at Southern Miss plus 2.5 is the right call there. I'm like you. I don't have much faith in Southern Miss. I feel like sideline has been on them more than a few times this season, and I feel like the results have been kind of 50-50 on that. So I think just a lean at 2.5, but I like the under 42.5 here. And really the breakdown, you can go back and listen to some other shows that we've done, but the breakdown is if Southern Miss is involved in a football game, I want to be on the under, almost no matter where it's at. So I think we should give a B grade to the under 52.5 and
42.5.
Yeah, 42.5. And I think the buy point here for an A grade would be 44. I don't know if it gets to 44. There are some 43.5s out there. There's like 1 or 2 places that have 44. Personally, I would be shocked if this got, consensus up to 44. That is a key number. And, Southern Miss and even Louisiana, honestly, have liked to play low scoring games this season. I would be surprised if we got to 44. But even with that in mind, I think that both these teams love to play low scoring games. So I'm good with giving a B grade under 42.5.
Okay, my question, I completely agree, and I think our buy point for a B grade is probably +3. We think low scoring game, give us a field goal. I think it's probably worth the investment there. Yeah. My question to you on the under, I'm in complete agreement with you. The Southern Miss unders have been pretty good. I think the Louisiana unders have been pretty good as well for the most part. They've been a lower scoring team. Defense is kind of maybe how they're going to get back to being decent. Is this overthinking it, and should we just say, like, is 42.5 just too much, and is it just trying to get too cute with a number, or is this just like, does this really get into the 40s? That's my question. And you could say it's possible, we still want to wait for that extra number, but I'm not convinced this game can get in the 40s, so I'm curious how much hesitation you have on that possibility.
I just think there's a lot of value from a where the numbers that games land on. I think there's a lot of value, obviously at 44, but even there's like 1.3% at like 43. And so and again, the entire market, honestly, besides BetOnline, is at 43.5 really. And so this makes me think that maybe BetOnline will go to like 43 or 43.5 eventually. And then, even if it doesn't get to 44, put the A grade on it at 43 or something like that. This is just where, the numbers that we're using are a little bit out of line with the rest of the market. And so I think, you might be able to wait 24 hours and maybe get a better number there.
Okay. So we're going to lock in B grade under on 42.5, but we have an eye on this one. I think we both like this under. Just real quick before we move on to this one, I look at Louisiana. They've had a couple high scoring games, but when you look at a team that they're going to play like Southern Miss, it's probably like Marshall. There were 36 points in that game. It's really like South Alabama. There were 37 points in that game. Louisiana Monroe, there were 38 points in that game. So there's a lot of evidence that Louisiana can get ground down to a halt here. Southern Miss wants to do that as well. So I think we both like the under. We have our eye on it. We could easily add that third unit to it. So check out Patreon on that. We'll just keep track of the number, maybe add a third unit. So B grade under 42.5. And right now, just a lean on Southern Miss at +2.5, a C grade pick. Not a great number. Really, this one is the total. We think under is the way to go here for the Thursday night game. 10 p.m. Eastern. Utah and Washington State. Utah's an 8-point road favorite. Sideline says this should be Utah minus 10.3. Utah's still ranked 8th, according to Sideline. And I think that says more about the 5 through 15 than it does anything else, because it's not that I think anybody's overly impressed with Utah. I think it's just that those teams that we've counted on to kind of fill in that gap have all kind of shown some flaws, right? You saw like with Texas this last weekend, I was concerned about them. And that's two weeks in a row now we faded them successfully. Having some issues, and we could just kind of go down the list, right? It's like all of them. It seems like there's just so many issues with those teams. So I don't think it's about Utah. I think it's about, I don't know what's going on with that group.
And when we were texting about this earlier today, I mentioned a few teams that I thought were overrated a little bit based on, Sideline's latest ratings there. But the problem is the teams that I had in mind, if I move those teams down, that means that there are some other teams that have to move up, and I don't know who those teams are to move up. So I think that exactly proves your point.
Exactly. Southern has Washington State at 50th. I'd at least give a lean to Utah here. Obviously, you want 7. I'm not really that confident playing it at a number bigger than 7. For me personally, I think 7's my buy point on Utah, but it feels a lot like that late night Washington Cal game where it's like we kind of talked about it all week. We texted about it in the Discord all Saturday. It was sitting at 7.5, waiting for 7, and then the game never gets to 7. And of course, the game finishes on 7, and we kept saying that was. And I kind of feel the same way about this one. I think Utah's the right side; they're the better team, but I really want 7 personally. Total is 56. Utah's defense obviously been a little bit discouraging this season, but I think Washington State is a sneaky under team here. So I kind of like this under 56, 55 being a pretty key number there. Because Jared, what's your take on this one?
I think that's exactly what I was going to say. I think we should give the 56 total here, give the under a B grade, just because, a lot of people want to get caught up on Utah, and definitely playing unders in Utah games has not been a profitable endeavor this season. But I think this is just as much about Washington State, especially playing at home.
Probably more about to me.
Yeah, than Utah. So let's give a B grade to the under 56. Personally, I think my spot for an A grade on here, just because of what we've seen from Utah this year, would probably be all the way up to 59, I think is where I would want this to get to give it an A grade. But anything 55 or above, I would definitely say a B grade on the under would be good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I kind of think the same thing. It's one of those things with the volatility of it. It would have to be a number that I don't think we're going to see. If it does get up into towards 60, obviously we can revisit that, but I'm like you, so we'll go in under 56 with a B grade in this one. And are you good with a lean on Utah -8 C grade pick?
I'm good with that.
And would you buy in at 7 as well, or do you have a different number in mind?
I think, and I think this goes, 6. Yeah, I think 6.5, because I do think this could get to be a low scoring game, and I could definitely see a lot of pushes at 7. And if it's lower scoring, it might be a little bit more difficult for Utah to win by more than 7.
So just kind of like, it's just not worth our time and our money, our capital if we can't win on 7.
I agree. Pullman on a Thursday night, anything could happen in that game, in my opinion, as far as the spread goes. Washington State could stay in a game that they shouldn't, or Utah could blow them out. I wouldn't really be surprised.
Yeah. So we'll go with a lean on Utah -8 C grade pick, but the under 56 is a B grade for that one. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, East Carolina, BYU. BYU, there's really no words at this point. I've said it for weeks. Every week I come on here and I'm like, y'all, BYU just isn't that good. I think we're going to look back at that Baylor win and be like, how in the world did that happen? I'm already thinking that. I think it's going to get even more confusing as the season goes along. BYU down to 78th in sideline. That is just an insane fall. East Carolina, a very impressive win against UCF this last week. They're up to 52nd according to the model. Something says this should be ECU -3.1, but instead we're getting 3 points with ECU. This is an extremely confusing line to me. I want to grab ECU +3. This is the rare game we have talked about, though. So really now we just get to replay our conversation. We usually don't talk about the games. Yeah. We did talk about this one, though. So you know exactly what I'm going to say here. I'm holding at a B grade here and not an A grade, simply because it's a non-conference game for ECU, coming off of a big win, traveling to altitude. I don't think it's a bounce back spot for BYU. I think if that was going to happen, it would have been against Liberty after the Arkansas game. I just think it's a tough place to play. And it's one of those, there's a lot of variance involved. I think grabbing the 3 points makes a ton of sense, or playing money line. It's just not one that I want to be extremely invested in. It's one I want part of my portfolio, but I personally want ECU +3 as a B grade.
I completely agree with you. Let's give a B grade to ECU getting the 3 points there. And man, I look at this total and I see what BYU did last week, and I see kind of how ECU has shut down some teams this season, and it makes me want to, take the under. But man, just you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment just based on what you saw last week. And you look at the totality of BYU season, and you say, how in the world could you play an under in a BYU game? So yeah. I'm trying very hard not to be a prisoner of the moment here. A number that high, I always want to eye the under, but I don't think the total has anything that's an investable number for us right now.
I agree. And like I said, I think we're going to try to outline what our buy points are. I don't know what the buy point is for this, for over or under. Nope. I have the same thoughts. Nope. I'm going to give you the counter to that. My thought was over. BYU's defense is terrible. Look at how many points he gave up to Liberty. And then I started looking at it and thinking about watching the game. I was like, but BYU couldn't score. And then I think about East Carolina's defense. And I'm like, so it's like I basically had the exact opposite thought, but we both landed at the same spot, which is I have no idea. But this one, first I was like, yeah, I'm going to be, and I was like, nah, I can't. And I don't know, maybe if this number moves a bunch of points one way or the other, we can come back to it and we can say, okay, now we have a direction. But at this number, I just stared. I'm like, I got nothing on this total whatsoever.
Yep. Well, that should tell you everything you need to know. Neither of us have a clue.
Yeah, exactly. 12 p.m. Eastern on the Saturday. Boston College at UConn. Boston College is a 9.5 point favorite. Sideline says it should be 9.7. Boston College is on the 96th in sideline. UConn at 122. We've talked about UConn here, backing them several times recently. They're playing hard. Kudos to them. They're up, towards at least, 10th worst, that area, which is an improvement for them, usually hanging in the bottom, 3 or so. I think grabbing the 9.5 with UConn, that's the side I want to be on here. The question is, what are our buy points? Is 9.5 worth a B grade, or does that need to be 10 for a B grade? That's really the question. I have a lean on that, but I don't want to bias you. So that's the question on the side. And then of course, 46, anytime you have Boston College, I feel like you're eyeing the under. So I'll let you take it from there and see what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah, let's talk. I guess let's talk about the spread first. Man, I would really like the 10 here, but I think just from what I've seen with Boston College this season, you wonder if they can score enough points to get outside even a number like 9.5, right? And so I think I would lean towards giving a B grade to UConn, getting the 9.5 points there, just because I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. But that goes right into my next point, which I think we should give the under 46 an A grade because there are already
now we're talking.
Yeah, there's already from some 45.5s out there. I don't think this number is going to go anywhere but down. And so I think that, I think I would probably give this an A grade all the way down to 45. But, why mess around and lose that half a point, maybe wait for it to get 40 to 45.5 before adding a third unit. So let's give it an A grade at 46. I just don't see this number going anywhere but down.
Yeah, I agree. And 46, we talk about kind of a dead number, but also it feels like with these two teams, there could be some weird shenanigans that you could land on a number like 46. And I'd be like, these two teams, that would be how it would happen, right? So I'm with you. Let's not get cute. Let's just lock it in under 46. I'm with you. A grade on the under. We'll go B grade on UConn plus 9.5. A grade, 10.5, or do we need to all the way to 13 for an A grade?
My first thought when you asked that was 11.
11. Okay. Yeah. All right. So then I will mark down. I'm good with that. I was kind of, like I said, all those numbers I was kind of thinking are all pretty reasonable. So we got a B grade on UConn plus 9.5. 11 is our buy point for the A, and we have an A grade on the under 46. Also noon Eastern, Miami of Ohio at Akron. Miami of Ohio, according to my volatility ratings, I've got two different ways I can look at that. According to the one that kind of discounts you for the direction you're going in is more about bounciness, Miami of Ohio is like the least bouncy team because they just get worse every single week. Akron, as we all know, is already a bottom 4 team. So this might be some ugly football here. Sideline says it should be Miami of Ohio minus 9.6. But look, do we have confidence in Miami of Ohio beating anybody by more than a touchdown at this point? Yeah, I was like, there's no way, right? To me, this is Akron or pass. The only question is what grade we're giving it, what numbers we need. So it's Akron or pass at the plus 8.5 right now. And the total is 47. And I think about the last several times, we've just been riding these Miami of Ohio unders. And I do want to say, look, hey, the numbers adjust. We have to be careful. We can't just blindly keep riding trains like this. But It feels like we haven't really made the adjustment yet. This number still feels too high.
And Miami, Ohio the totals haven't come close to going over.
No,
That's the thing.
no,
They haven't been close
yeah.
at all.
And I'm thinking about, like, you see a team like San Diego State now, good defense, mediocre offense. You see the Iowa totals, right, are all just like really low. And I'm like, why aren't we putting Miami of Ohio in that same? We should just make these really low.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to happen though.
Yeah.
So we're on Akron, we're on the under. The only question is the grades. What do you have for us?
A grade on the under, like for sure. This is the exact opposite of the Southern Miss situation, where the book that we're using is one of the only places that still has a 47 available. A lot of the other places have already gone to 46 and a half. There's a couple of 46s out there. So I think under 47, give it an A grade. Go back and listen to all the other shows if you want the explanation as to why that's the case. We just kind of recapped it here, though.
Or yeah, like you said, we've been on them. They haven't even been close. They've got a good defense, and their offense is putrid. That's like the too long don't read the Cliff Notes version. Like I'm shocked this number isn't like 42 or 39 or something ridiculous. That's what I would have expected when I pulled this up. I know that Akron's been more of a bad defense team, but I don't think Miami can score off anybody.
Yeah, I agree. Man, as far as the spread goes, like I know that getting 8.5 points in this situation seems good with what we're expecting to be a really low scoring game. But man, Akron's just really, really bad. I know Miami, Ohio is bad too, but I just don't feel like I've gotten, especially in regards to the spread, I just don't feel like I've done well on the MAC this entire season. So this is partially, I feel like I know how the game's going to play out with Miami of Ohio, but there's just something in the back of my mind that it's like I feel like I haven't gotten a MAC game right on the spread all season, and so that just makes me want to give it a C grade.
I was thinking the same thing. I've been looking, and we've been talking about this off screen, but there is a range of edges where I've run some math, or I'm converting the differences in point spreads to key numbers and some different things. It's complicated. I'm actually going to publish a paper on this shortly, and there's kind of a range where I've kind of honed in on these are the edges I want. This isn't there yet, so I'm with you. This is a C grade edge for me at plus 8.5. Well, what number if it gets high enough? Like I said, it's Akron or pass. You could not convince me to back Miami of Ohio on the road and lay any number near this. 10 and a half. I mean, 10. At what point is 10? 10? Okay. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. So at some point it was double digits. The only question is if we wanted to hook on that for the win on 10. But okay, so a lean and Akron at plus 8.5. We don't really think it's worth investing in until it gets higher, though double digits what we're looking for, but the A grade under 47.
Yep.
Noon Eastern, Notre Dame at Syracuse. I feel like Notre Dame is the poor man's BYU. And I think a lot of people would say the opposite. And I get what you're saying. What I mean by that is in the like disappointment, the like going downhill type thing, right? BYU's just been a spectacular like dumpster fire, it seems like, this season. I feel like Notre Dame's not been as bad as that, but just continuing to disappoint. Failed them last week against UNLV when they scored a ton of points and still couldn't cover. Didn't really sniff a cover. Every time they got close to the number, either Akron scored or the game ended. Or Akron, UNLV. And so, just that should have been a spot where they could have covered, given how many points they scored, that they didn't. So they continue to support. Syracuse, on the other hand, continues to impress. Is this when we talk about Clemson? I mean, and the I told you so. I mean, we have to. We can talk about it whenever you want to talk about it. I figure when we talk about Clemson, but we can talk about it now if you want to. Okay. The point being, Syracuse played well in that game. They hung in there. Weren't able to get the victory. They did get that scoop and score, which was huge for them. And kind of was the difference in what I was saying was I thought Syracuse could hang in there, didn't think they could win. If you take away, that kind of play, it plays out almost exactly as I talked about. But a good team, and I think just a huge drop off from Clemson and Notre Dame. Clemson definitely a top 10 team. Notre Dame not even a top 25 team. Sideline has them ranked 39th. Syracuse, I've got them at 27th. I think Syracuse is the better team here. Sideline says it should be Syracuse -5. I don't know why this is under 3. I love this one. This is in the range of edges that I'm going to push for a pick here on Syracuse -2.5. Total's 47. What do you have for us?
I completely agree. I think we should be laying the 2.5 points with Syracuse. I'm going to need your help determining on what the grade on that should be, though, because to me, my gut instinct is to give it a B, but I feel like this is why we're having this exercise now and kind of doing this the way that we're doing it. Because if there's some statistical reason why it would be an A, I'm definitely open to having my mind changed. And I think the main reason for me, kind of the hesitation on the A grade, is just because nothing Syracuse really does is pretty. Like, it feels like it's just a little bit of luck and a bunch of ugly plays and some bonehead plays by the other team, but it seems like it happens with them consistently. So that, to me, it seems something that like, whoa, this isn't, something that can happen all the time. And that may or may not be true, but in my mind, that's how it is. So I want to give it a B grade, but I want to hear kind of what your logic is if you think it should be an A grade.
Well, my thought hearing that isn't that exactly what Notre Dame does? Those boneheaded type plays that cost them. So it feels like it plays right into it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. So let's give it an A play then.
I think so. And my reasoning for the A grade here also, I think, has to do with the fact that it's such a good number at 2.5. I think that's my threshold for the A grade play. I think at 3, it drops to a B, knowing that it could easily push there. But Syracuse is a better team. They're at home. I think that place will be rocking, even though it's a noon start, just because the hype, the excitement of that team. One of my colleagues that I publish papers with is a faculty member at Syracuse, and we were at a conference recently, and all he could do was talk about the football team. Like, they are pumped about the football team there. So I think they can. I don't think it'll be a sleepy start for them because of the excitement that they finally have about football up there in Syracuse, New York.
Yeah. And so in regards to the total there, this is one of those, I just feel like I've seen too many Syracuse games this year where the crazy things happen, and I could easily see this game ending up at like 48 or 49 or 51 or 52 or something like that. So I know that everybody might be surprised that I'm not going under in this situation, but I just feel like both these teams have all sorts of crazy situations this entire season where you could easily see this game going over this number by a few points.
So is there a number going up or down that you would be interested in playing? This is,
I think I would feel a lot better if this were at 48. I think I could probably give it a B grade at 48. But man, I feel like both these teams, you just see some wonky things week in and week out. Like, I think back to that Syracuse and Purdue game and how like that one just got so crazy at the end. I think about the BYU Notre Dame game, which still went under, but it got a lot tighter at the end.
Yeah. I think that said more about BYU than Notre Dame, though.
Yeah, that's true. So I think at 48 is where I would consider making this a B grade under.
And I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking under 2. And again, viewer, we talked about, I think the only game we talked about really was the ECU one ahead of time. I think unders the way I would look to. I saw all the points last week. I think that says more about UNLV than Notre Dame. Syracuse plays some wonky games, but I think Notre Dame tends to drag teams in these under games. I think Syracuse is going to be perfectly happy playing a game like that. We saw Syracuse play a lower scoring game against Clemson. So I agree with you. I think unders the way I would look. But yeah, there is a point where we say we have to have a good enough number, and I'm totally fine saying 48 is it, since that's such a key number. That makes sense. So we're going to go A grade Syracuse minus 2.5, and we're going to go under 48. If it gets to 48, that would be a B grade play. Also at noon Eastern, Arkansas and Auburn. Auburn is getting 4 points at home against an Arkansas team that sideline now has down to 38th. Auburn ranked 49th. So, I mean, you're talking about two decent teams, mediocre for SEC standards. I'm personally a little confused why the road team is favored by more than a field goal when I don't think they're that much better than Auburn. I think maybe a month and a half ago, maybe you could have convinced me Arkansas was a lot better than Auburn. I don't see any evidence of that. I think Arkansas is maybe a little bit better. I'm okay with them being favored, but if it was me, I would have set this line at like Arkansas minus 2. I think there's a lot of value at Auburn plus 4. Sideline says it should be Arkansas minus 0.5, so basically a pick 'em or Arkansas minus 1. Again, I'd be fine Arkansas minus 2. I like Auburn plus 4 in this one. Total is 60.5. Kissinger, what do you have for us?
Definitely like Auburn plus 4 as well. I've been very impressed with what very impressed. That's not the right word to use. I have been
pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised. Yes, exactly. at how Auburn just hasn't given up on this season, seemingly hasn't given up on, and this season in specific games haven't given up in specific games when it seems like they have a lame duck coach that is going to be gone at the end of the season. And it seems like they're going to, kind of ride this horse until the end of the season. I don't know if they're going to be getting rid of Harsin. They've had plenty of opportunities to this point, and he's still there. Yeah. The players seem to be playing hard for him. So I've seen enough of Arkansas this season, and specifically Arkansas's defense, and with how Auburn looked in their last game against Ole Miss when they put up 35 points or 38 points or however many it was, where I think they could do something similar with Arkansas if they absolutely got into a game where they had to do that. So I feel good about taking the 4 points. I would lean towards a B grade just because I don't have a lot of confidence in Auburn. But if this is in that area where, sideline has just been really profitable this season, saying, hey, we need to make this an A grade, then I could definitely be swayed that way.
It's a B plus or an A minus for me. What I'm trying to figure out is the only thing would be if we give it a B, I think you have to say it's an A at 4.5 because 4 is a fairly common outcome. So it's either just an A at 4 and let's just lock it in, because I just think there's a tremendous amount of value here. This should be a tight game. And obviously Arkansas can win this game by 6 or 7. That wouldn't be overly surprising. I just think there's a lot of value here with Auburn. And so it's like I said, it's either a B at 4 and an A at 4.5, or this is just an A at 4, in my opinion. I don't think we need 6 or 7. I'm like you. I just think that Auburn's playing well and Arkansas just isn't as good as maybe we thought that they had the potential to be.
Right.
But I'll let you make that call on if we are going, if we need 4.5 or not.
Let's give it an A grade. Let's give the 4 an A grade. Just the difference between a win and a push there. So let's go ahead and give it the A grade. Man, the total on this one, nope. I've got nothing on this game. If there were 52 points in this game, I would not be surprised. If there were 70 points in this game, I would not be surprised.
I completely agree. I was going to say, I don't think there's a number really you could get me to invest in this that would be offered at anywhere near minus 110. Alternate, sure, but we're not talking about laying crazy odds, right? Yeah, I'm with you. There's high variance in the total. I want no part of the total. I think let's just focus on Auburn and move on from that one.
Yeah.
Noon Eastern, Ohio State and Penn State. Ohio State is a 15-point favorite. Here's how I'm going to put words. How I'm going to pitch this game to you.
Yeah.
Sideline has faded Ohio State every single week and has said no. Mm-hmm. And finally, we have an opportunity where Sideline agrees with the spread. To me, that says something. We very rarely ever have a team. It's only a couple teams a year that it happens with, where the first 8 weeks of the season, we're always on them, we're always against them. Ohio State's one of those. Sideline says 15.1. This is 15. I think we should back Ohio State at 15. I think it's telling us something. Yeah. I think, obviously, I would love 14. I would love 13. But I think that we saw Penn State is that, to me, feels very much like that team that is good enough to beat up on the rest of the Big Ten and still really far behind Ohio State and Michigan. That's just how I feel about Penn State. So I think we should lay the 15 with Ohio State if they come out there so dang good. And I would have locked this in before it gets to 17 or some other dumb number. If it gets lower, maybe we talk about adding a unit to it there. But for me, I like Ohio State minus 15.
Yep, I agree. Let's give the minus 15 a B grade there. Man, this total, I think, it would just be a lean, but I think I would lean over. If we can get as many points in Ohio State, Iowa as we did, why can't we get more than that in Ohio State and Penn State? So I would lean towards the over, but again, just a lean. I don't want to be invested in the total at a number like 61.5.
Okay. I was going to say I agree in that I think it's over or pass based off what we saw with Ohio State and Iowa. Based off what we've seen with Penn State, too, they seem to be a team that just randomly gets points. And you're like, how does this happen? It doesn't impress me, but they're just
every single week.
Right. Which is exactly what we said about Memphis. And we said, you just got to go over against Tulane. And we didn't do it. And yet that game went flying over the total. Penn State and Memphis are very, very similar in that regard. So I agree. I think it's over or pass. What would the buy point be? Because I'm like you. I just think you got to go over, but where do we actually say it's worth our investment?
Okay, so the thing is 59? Okay, so yes, if it were 59, I would say yes. I don't think this is getting to 59.
I don't think so either.
So 59, I would say definitely 60.5. You might be able to talk me into it at 60.
It is 60.5 now, right?
It is 61 and okay, well, I'm seeing 61.5. So maybe I am not looking in the correct place. But yeah, 59.
No, it's up to 61.5 too. Also,
Okay.
We talked about this, right? This is the episode where, like, by the time I lock this in, numbers might move, right? Numbers move on Sunday night. So
yeah,
there we go. It is 60. When I pulled the numbers in, it was 60.5. Correct. Right now it is 61.5. So
okay,
we've already got that movement.
Okay, so yeah, 59, and clearly doesn't look like that's going to happen.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah,
All right. And then our buy point for an A grade, 13.5.
Kind of based on 13.5. Yeah, 13.5.
13.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty then, to the noon Eastern game between Toledo and Eastern Michigan. So
the floor is yours.
Yeah, man. Okay, we'll get the fun stuff out of the way, right? Toledo ranked 61st according to Sideline. Eastern Michigan 111. Sideline says it should be Toledo minus 12.7. The not fun stuff. Ball State, we laid 2.5 with them against Eastern Michigan. They fumbled on 1st and goal in the first half, and obviously didn't score on that. Eastern Michigan fumbled at 2nd and goal later in the game and did recover. Or it wasn't rolled a fumble. I can't remember which one it was. So that was the difference in the game. One of those goes differently, and Ball State covers. That said, we did kind of say that would be our last hurrah with Eastern Michigan if we lost. And yet here we are with Toledo, a team that I have nailed for several many weeks in a row, backing them and they cover, backing them and they cover, backing them. They were last week. I was like, no, we're going to take Buffalo. And that worked out as well. So I feel like we have the tale of two coins here, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, I am on fire with Toledo. We can't get Eastern Michigan right. Maybe we can make this our last gasp with Eastern Michigan, right? Let's lay the 9 with Toledo. Well, let's lay the 9 with Toledo. And if this one fails, we really are, this is it. We are really putting our foot down on Eastern Michigan at this point. What do you say?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm good with laying the 9 points with Toledo too. Cause again, Toledo usually seems to have these hiccups every year where they have games where they just come out and they look terrible, especially in conference play. They've looked good so far. So I've kind of bought in at this point, which I'm sure means this is the game where they falter.
No, that was last week against Buffalo. That was the hiccup. They already had their hiccup. Now it's a get right game.
Okay. So there you go. So let's lay the 9 points with Toledo here, man. And I guess, what grade do you want to give that? It sounds to me going from 9 to 12 is that an A grade territory?
It would be, but I think the volatility on Eastern Michigan has me just holding off on a B on this one. It's one that I think is really worth the investment. I just don't want to be over-invested in Eastern Michigan because they've just been so and we all liked Eastern Michigan's Arizona State, but gosh, that feels like 9 years ago because of every game we've either backed or faded Eastern Michigan and lost. So I think it's a B grade just because Eastern Michigan's so wonky, but I do want to be invested on Toledo minus 9. I think I would need 7 to get to an A grade. I don't see 7 happening, but if it were for some reason to drop to 7, then I would be an A grade. But I'm perfectly happy Toledo minus 9 is a B grade. I think this number goes up. I think it should be higher. So lock in a single digit number, I think is worth your money on Toledo.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. Let's give that a B grade. The total, man. So just looking at Eastern Michigan's FBS games, they have been so hit or miss on their totals. You got 70, 51, 81, 33, a big number, 68, 49, 36. I mean, 58 does not, or 55, even 55 to 58 feels like the realm of this game is not getting to that number. It is either going into the upper 60s or it is going to 45. And good luck if you could tell me which one that's going to be, because I do not have a clue. I wouldn't even personally, I don't even feel comfortable giving you ranges on this, where I would say give me an over or under. It would have to be some kind of ridiculous numbers, just because, again, Eastern Michigan, just like they have been against the spread, their totals have just been insane this season.
Completely agree. I feel like it's like the Auburn, Arkansas thing. It's just I don't even want to mess with it. I have no idea. They've been all over the map with everything they've done this year. Eastern Michigan has been. So it's just a straight pass to the total. Don't even want to think about it, care about it. Pretend it doesn't even exist. Let's just back Toledo. Single digits is a great number. B grade pick from us. 12 p.m. Eastern, still hanging on to those news thoughts to get a lot of things we like this week. South Florida at Houston. Houston getting a nice fairly comfortable A-grade winner for us on Saturday against Navy. I'm a little confused here. And maybe you could explain this to me, and maybe you can, and maybe that explains exactly why we're going to do what we're going to do here. But
Yeah.
Is Navy that much better than South Florida? Like, Houston was 2.5 points over Navy, and that was on the road, sure, but now 17.5. That's a 15-point difference. Even if you do home and road, that's a 5-point swing. Like, is Navy 10 points better than South Florida? Like, that seems like a lot to me.
Yeah, my initial response is no. I think that the only difference there that you could possibly account for is that we've talked about this before, but just Navy plays a type of game where it makes it very difficult for it to get out of hand, whereas South Florida seems to just play only games that get out of hand. So I think, like, on all things equal, no, I don't think that they're that different. It's just that Navy kind of plays a style of game that attempts to mask all of their deficiencies, whereas South Florida seems to play a type of game there's just like, hey, here's all of our issues, go attack them, kind of thing. So I think that's more how I would frame it, more so than they're vastly different, because I don't think they are.
Sideline has Houston as a 15-point favorite here. I just have no faith in Houston winning big at this point. We just haven't seen it from them this season. I'm going to push to take the 17.5 with South Florida. I think it's a really key number. It does fall under the edge of the threshold of edges that I think is worth the investment at the hook here at 17.5. 17 is very on the border. 16.5, different story, not as much value there, but at 17 and a half, I think South Florida is worth the investment. Like I said, I just don't have a lot of faith in Houston. A total of 62. What is your take on this one?
Let's give a B grade to the 17.5 on South Florida. I've got nothing for you on the total on this game. South Florida runs the ball a lot. The clock should be moving a lot. But the thing is that has not mattered because their defense has been very porous this season. And Houston, not against the best competition necessarily, but it feels like their offense has kind of gotten going a little bit more than they were at the beginning of the season. Dell, the receiver for Houston, looked really good against Navy.
Yeah.
He's a pretty talented guy. So I would lean under, but kind of what I've seen the past few weeks and what I've seen from South Florida all season would make me really fairly uncomfortable with that. So I think this is a total, like some of the other ones that we've talked about, that we should probably just stay away from.
63 under 60, or do you need 60, like 66? I mean, I'm with you. I would lean under. I just don't know what number we would buy in at.
I think 65 is probably where I would
65.
have to be to get a B grade on the under, just because I think everybody's been able to put up points against South Florida this season for the most part. And so I'm worried that Houston could score 48 points themselves.
Yeah. And I don't really think there is a point where this gets to an A grade on South Florida. They're a bad team. I just don't want to be over-invested in them. I mean, sure, if it was like 24.5 maybe, but like it's some stupid number that's never going to happen. So B grade at 17.5. I think this is the best number you're going to get. I'm through with this number. If it's a little better, sure, I still think it's a B grade, but it's not going to get to an A grade for me. And then total, if it does get up to 65, we would go under, but otherwise we are passing on the total. New Eastern Georgia Tech at Florida State. Florida State is a whopping 21.5 point favorite here. Sideline says that this should be Florida State minus 18. Florida State ranked 34th, Georgia Tech 90th. Obviously, Florida State's a much better team and at home, but Georgia Tech looking respectable, kind of keeping games lower scoring. You see the total there of 47.5. I really think Georgia Tech plus 21.5 is worth an investment. Anytime you get a ton of points and that total number is low, you have to look long and hard at it. So I'm going to push for us to take the 21.5 with Georgia Tech. Total is 47.5. I feel like at 48, you could talk me into potentially an under, but I feel like I really want that before I start thinking under. What is your take?
Yeah, so we can give a B grade to the 21.5 points. I agree. That feels like a lot of points in the game with the total potentially this low. The total seems well set to me because, you look at the game with Florida State and LSU, that one got to 47. Boston College, which, we talked about Boston College at the top, really liking the under in the Boston College UConn game. The Boston College Florida State game got to 58 points, which seems kind of difficult to fathom.
That game got drunk in a hurry though. It was like
Yeah.
21-zip like 5 minutes in. So I don't know what to make of that game. I mean, that was weird.
Yeah.
I feel like Georgia Tech's going to put up a better showing than that and not let that happen.
But then I can go look at like the Clemson game and 34-28, where that one also, like, Clemson was in control of that. It looked like it was going under, and then Florida State scored some points in the fourth quarter that made that one go over. It's just you've seen, to me this season, you've seen some things from Florida State with the totals that wouldn't have played out the way that you would have expected them to. So I agree. If I had to pick a side, I would pick the under. But we've just got more than a few games that we can look at Florida State this season. It's been like, one thing here, one thing there, and it's just completely thrown the total kind of out of whack. So definitely away at 47.5.
What, 48.5, or do you want to get up to 52?
Oh man,
or 51.
I would probably say 51. I really don't have a good feel on this one, and I think I would need.
I assume
50.
that'll never happen, but we've got it on record. We have the number we're officially looking for. For that one, so probably just a straight pass in the total. We would lean under, but we don't really think it's worth investing in.
We always and for the people that are with us on Patreon, we always reserve the right to change our mind if something comes up and we learn something new or something like that. So that's where we're at now. But our Patreon people, if we change our mind, you will know.
Yeah, the opinions on picks, once it's locked in, right? But on the non-locked picks, right, opinions subject to change. Plus 21.5 on Georgia Tech is a B grade pick. And I feel the same way about this one as I do South Florida. Not really worth an A grade. Georgia Tech's not a very good team. So I just don't want to be overinvested. And I think 21.5 is a great number. If it gets higher, cool. I don't think it would ever get to an A grade for me personally.
Right.
12:30 Eastern, Miami and Virginia, and my goodness, talk about the disappointment bowl. I don't even know where to start with these two teams. Both of them are 3-4. Sideline has Miami at 62nd, Virginia at 79th. I mean, the loser of this game in jeopardy of not making the bowl, which seems really far-fetched given coming into the season. Not that we thought either one of these teams was going to play for the national championship, but we really thought both of them would be better than this.
Definitely.
Sideline says Miami by minus 2.6. They're actually a 2-point favorite. Total is 47.5. Virginia's become an under team somehow. I don't understand it whatsoever. Miami's been an under team. Their offense is putrid, but they allowed like 700 points to Duke. We got the Duke in the points easy last week, but missed the total because Duke just kept scoring. If you put this Miami defense versus last year's Virginia offense, I'd be like, oh my gosh, Virginia's going to score 70 points, but this Virginia offense can't seem to score. Just what a weird game. What a weird world we live in. I did not expect to say the things I'm saying about these two teams where we are right now. Cousin Jared, what is your take on this game?
There is no way this total gets to 48, right? Like, there is just no way this gets to 48.
I mean, last week we saw a lot of really confusing line movements, so I'm not sure.
We did.
we saw a lot of confusing. And hey, again, before you carry on, I need to say for the viewer, I hear a lot of, let's talk about Oklahoma State, Texas. I know that's not this game we're talking about. Let's talk about Oklahoma State, Texas. There was a lot of, oh my gosh, the number's going up. Oh my gosh, Spencer Sanders didn't practice the week before. Oh my gosh, look at what the wind's going to do. Those teams could run all day off of each other. Like, this whole, like, the numbers moving one way, that scares me. I keep trying to tell y'all, this closing line value nonsense about football, all it tells you is if you got a good number or a bad number, and you should always try to get the best number, but it doesn't mean it's the right play, right? So when the moves are confusing, take advantage of it. Have your opinion, stick with your opinion, and capitalize on it. We did a lot of that last week, and it worked out pretty well for us. So there were a lot of confusing moves. Maybe this one gets to 48, and we're confused, and I would just be like, yes, I love it. Let's go even more up the answer. But it seems like it would be foolish to go up to 48, personally.
Yeah. So I think we should give the under 47.5 an A grade, because I think that Miami gave up a lot of points last week to Duke. But you know what's going to prevent Virginia from scoring a lot of points? Virginia. and it's not going to have anything to do with Miami's defense. So I think we should give an A grade to the under 47.5. I just don't see how anything we've seen from these teams the past couple of months makes me think it's going to go over this number, regardless of if it's 48 or not. And of course, if it gets to 48, I'm going to feel dumb. I'm going to wish that we had given it a B grade here and then added a third unit at 48. But I think it could be like the Virginia-Georgia Tech game last season, where you talked me into it, last week.
In the midweek game, yeah.
Did we lock it in like 46 or something, or 47?
So something like, yeah.
And it went up across another key number. If we got it in at 46.5, it went up to like 47.5 or got up to 48. And I was thinking, oh no, I hope we don't lose this bet because, we missed a key number there right at the very end. Didn't matter. Was never going to matter. Those teams were never getting to that number.
Yet another situation where it's like, just because the number's moving one way doesn't mean that's the right number, right? It doesn't mean it's the right play.
And so
that wouldn't even get close.
And where I'm going with this is that if this goes to 48, I don't think that changes my handicap of this game. I think it should be under 47.5. So let's give the A grade to under 47.5. The spread, screw it. I don't know. I would take so again, not sure what it was whenever we pulled lines. I guess I should really go look and see what we're pulling this from right here. So I guess it was probably like minus 105. I would lean towards with minus 105 odds. I would lean towards taking the 2 points with Virginia, even though, sideline gives us a little bit of a Miami lean, but I'm not going to argue either way.
I think we should be on Miami at -2.
Okay.
But just a lean. I don't want to be invested in it really.
Okay.
I lean Miami, and this is where I'm going to tell you this about this game, and it's going to be like I'm going to tell you about right now, and then it means nothing because I still don't really want to be invested. But I'm setting myself up for later when this is going to matter. If I look under the hood at what's happening in sideline, I think that Miami's got a little bit more room for growth than Virginia does. So I think that if sideline is off, and this should actually be Miami -3, 3.5, something like that. So I think that Miami's the right side to be on here. I don't want to be invested in it because these two teams are so inconsistent. I say officially let's lean Miami -2, A grade on the under 47.5. I completely agree with you. Yeah, it feels a lot like that midweek game with Virginia where it's just ridiculous how they can't seem to score. And if for some reason Virginia does score on this Miami team and they put up 50 like Duke did, then we can take credit single-handedly for reviving Virginia and you're all welcome because now they'll get fun again. So I'm fine with that if that's on our shoulders. If not, we get an A grade winner on the under.
And I remember people like, I feel like we need to keep this in mind. Like somebody needs to be held accountable for the terrible decisions that happen with college football teams sometimes. Virginia comes in and their offense just gets shot to hell. And the offensive staff or some of the offensive staff that was at Virginia goes to Syracuse and all of a sudden Syracuse is good and their offense is respectable. And so like people, just somebody needs to be held accountable when these things happen. I don't know who it is, but somebody needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would argue with that. 3:00 Eastern, Old Dominion at Georgia State. Old Dominion and Georgia State are both ranked in the mid to high 80s, according to Sideline. I think these two teams are pretty equivalent. Sideline says it should be Georgia State -1. I don't know why we're getting 3.5 here. I like grabbing the 3.5 with Old Dominion. I think they're a solid team. I think Georgia State's okay as well. They're rising in the rankings, but I think both these teams are decent. Not great teams. Give me the 3 and the hook all day long. I don't know how long this number lasts. I just think total 56, not going to be super high scoring. Should be a close game. Should be a fun game. Getting 3.5 feels like you're giving Georgia State a lot of home field edge that I don't think they have. So I think it makes a lot of sense to grab the field goal and the hook. Total 56. Because Jared, what do you have for us?
I like to break down the games on what I've seen and kind of bring in kind of what I've seen from these teams, my analysis on top of
what you seen 1 second of either team?
That's exactly where I'm going. Okay, well, I have seen some of Georgia State, but where I was going with this was I felt like the model was on Georgia State a lot at the beginning of the season, and now that I'm seeing it has kind of flipped and is going against Georgia State in a team with Old Dominion that I feel like I have had a decent grasp on this season. So I like taking the 3.5 points as well. To me, it's just a question of what grade do we want to give it.
I think a lot depends on how much we love the hook. I think a lot has to do with how much we think that's correlated with the total, right? If we think over 56, higher scoring, then I think that hook becomes a little bit less valuable. If we think we would lean under 56, then I think that hook becomes more valuable. So I think it's right on the borderline there. So I think my let me answer your question with a question is, would you lean over or under? And I think that determines A or B grade for me on the 3.5.
I think I would probably lean over, but I don't feel strongly about that. I think what I would say then is let's give this a B grade for now. I mean, it is even money right now. So it's 3.5 even money. Maybe it gets to 4, and maybe, it would be an A grade, maybe potentially at 4. If it goes back down to 3, so we've got our B locked in at 3.5. So I would lean towards, let's make this a B grade at this number. And maybe even if I may feel comfortable at 4, giving it an A grade or 4.5.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
4.5 for sure.
Okay.
Maybe 4. We'll say 4 or 4.5. Kind of just depends on how we're feeling in the moment. If it gets up there. With regards to the total, you said you would lean over. So, would you play over 55, 54.5?
Yeah, this is definitely one I reserve the right later in the week, because you talk about how much have you watched these two teams. This is one I'm going to have to do some research on to feel really good. My initial thought is Georgia State's defense has not been a lot to write home about. We saw what App State did to them last week, how App State had, I don't know how many points through the first 2 quarters. It was a very small number of points, and they ended a game with a lot of points.
42.
And so that's partially what makes me lean to the over, but this is one where I would need to do some research before I feel really good about that. Just based off where the line is at, 56 right now, like I don't think there's any number I can give on the show right now where it would possibly get to where I would say playing over or under. I'm just going to have to look into it more.
I'll say this. They only got to 63 points against North Carolina, but then they got to 83 with Charlotte. So, they do seem to be more of a higher scoring team. Yeah. I think the question that we would have with this, and where, maybe, again, we'll look into it. So maybe we'll just decide to play over 56 later. We've kind of said all year that we thought that Old Dominion was a team that would play with you. If you want to go slow, they'll go slow. If they want to go fast, they'll go fast. That didn't play out with Georgia Southern. There were only 51 points in that game. And the total got up to 66. So my hesitation there, if it wouldn't have been for the Georgia Southern game, I would have said, let's just fire on the over. Georgia State's a high scoring team. And Old Dominion has kind of gone with teams for the most part, but that game kind of gives me a little bit of a pause and makes me think either just don't play it or we need a better number for the over.
I agree.
All right, so we've got Old Dominion plus 3.5 there as a B grade pick. Borderline A, 4.5 would be an A. We'll look back if the number gets better. 3:30 Eastern kickoff, Wake Forest at Louisville. This was the game I was setting it up for. I'm high on Louisville, and all I can say without giving away as the Bush's baked beans secret, right, is if I'm wrong on this, I'm too high on Wake Forest. Sideline says Wake Forest minus 4.5. If it's off, it should actually be 3.5 or 3. Louisville's a solid team. They're at home. They got a nice win against Pittsburgh this weekend. I've got Wake Forest at 17th. Like I said, I'm pretty high on Wake Forest. I think Louisville plus 4.5. I think that's as good of a number as we're going to get. I think we should play it. I'm fine holding off at a B just because we have respect for Wake Forest.
Right.
High total, but I don't see this number getting to 6. And I think this is one of those last team to have the ball wins. We saw Louisville frustrate a Pittsburgh offense that, again, we talked about last week. We kind of gave them a lot of crap, but Pittsburgh had been scoring. And Louisville's defense kind of frustrated them. I think they can potentially frustrate Wake Forest a little bit. They're not going to hold Wake Forest what they held Pittsburgh to, obviously. But Wake Forest defense is a little bit worse than Pittsburgh's as well, so they should be able to have more success scoring. It feels like a higher scoring game. One of those last team to have the ball wins. Could easily be just a ping pong. Someone kicks a field goal and then it oscillates between 3 and 4, 3 and 4, 3 and 4. Plus 4.5 is a pretty good number. I think we should be on Louisville plus 4.5 on this one. What do you think, Cousin Jared?
Let's give that a B grade then. And man, this total would have thought anything that Pitt and Louisville game was going to go over 55, and it never got close. And so I'm a little bit hesitant after last week to give a play on the total here. Definitely, I would lean towards the over. It feels like there's going to be a lot of points in this game. This is one of those games where you feel like Cunningham kind of has his way, and this could remind me a little bit of the Liberty Wake Forest game where that ended up like 35-37 or something like that. I could easily see this happening in this game, but at the same time, after what I saw last week, I'm just a little scared of what I've seen. So I want to stay away for now.
I hear you. I think I would be on the over at 62. Okay. I think it's right there. And the reason I say obviously 62, a fairly key number, they get a little bit less key up here because you just need so many touchdowns, right?
Right.
But I really think that this number is deflated because of that Louisville Pitt game last week. And I think that just was one of those games where just neither team could get going. But I think that Wake Forest offense is good enough to get going against Louisville, and Wake Forest defense is bad enough to let Louisville get going. As much as I said, I do think Louisville's defense can slow Wake down. They're not going to stop them completely. That Wake Forest offense can't be stopped completely. It's so good.
Yep.
I think this turns into a higher scoring game. 60, like I said, I think 62 would be my buy point for the over. Maybe 62.5. It's probably still worth the over, but I just feel like it's early in the week. There's no rush. Let's see if it drops a little bit before we play over. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, that's fair, and that's why we're doing this, because I'm scared of all overs, and so this is why we have this relationship here. So if you're good with over at 62, then I can be in line with that.
All right, so if it gets to 62, we'll take the over. Yeah, maybe 62.5. We'll do some more research. We'll talk more about it later, but at least for now, we're going to hold off on the total, and we're going to lock Louisville plus 4.5 in as a B grade pick. 3:30 Eastern, Temple at Navy. Navy is, obviously a team that has struggled for the most part this season. Temple, whatever's worse than that. Temple got the cover for us on, I believe it was Friday, in a game that they looked miserable in, probably didn't deserve to cover, and yet did. Navy didn't cover against Houston, so I don't know which one's worse. I've got Navy still barely inside the top 100, Temple at 120th. Sideline says this should be Navy minus 10.2. Total this game's 40. I mean, Temple's offense is miserable. I feel like it's under pass for sure on this. You couldn't talk me into an over with Navy and the way they play in Temple's offense. We saw Temple's defense play pretty strong this last week. Obviously, maybe you want, a 41 or 41, I guess, for the under. Maybe you're fine with under 40, but I feel like 40-41, it's under a pass. I think we should grab the 14 with Temple just because I don't trust Navy to win by that much against anybody. What is your take on this one?
I've mentioned a bunch of times this season how Navy, it's difficult to lay a lot of points against them because depending on how the game plays out, there are not very many possessions. It could be hard to get outside of a big number. But it goes the opposite way, too, where it's really hard for Navy to blow somebody out unless they just force a lot of turnovers or, the other team commits a lot of boneheaded mistakes. If it's, even if Navy has to drive the field a lot of times, it's going to eat up a lot of clock. It's just really hard.
12 minutes.
Yeah, it's just really hard to get outside of this number. So I 100% agree that we should be taking the 14 points with Temple here. And I personally would lean towards this being an A grade just because I think Navy is bad. And again, just the type of game they play makes it really hard to get outside of this number.
I was borderline on A or B. I'm fine with an A grade. Okay. Temple's bad, but also Navy's bad. I mean, there's really not much more to it than that. Is 41 the buy point for the under?
Yeah, I think so. If you wanted to be really safe, you could say maybe it would be like 42.
42, just because Navy doesn't kick a lot of field goals.
Yeah, but I would be shocked if this this total goes up any higher than what it already is. So yeah, let's say 41. We'll give it a B grade.
Are we? It's so, and I'm going to remind you of this on a later game as well. Actually, the next game. I'm going to remind you of the next game, so it works out really well. This game and the next game. I talked you into last week adding kind of, an hour before kick, added it on Patreon, the under in San Diego State, Nevada. It was like 36, and it got to 30. And 36 is a really low number. Got to 30 points. It got to 30 points. The last touchdown was scored on a 3rd and long quarterback scramble from like the 50.
In like the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah, and then nothing, right? And so I'm just wondering, sometimes these totals get really low, but like, are we overthinking them if we just don't say like, this game's just not getting anywhere near 40? Like, it's like, I almost want to make a little bit of a pitch to make this a B grade under and be like, these two teams ain't scoring. Like, we're overthinking this. Like, we're worried about a key number, but like, this game might not get to 30. This game might not get to 24, right? If this game was like 10-3, I think we'd all be like, yeah, these two teams are terrible on offense. Like, Temple's defense is decent. Their offense is bad. Like, I kind of feel like maybe I'm maybe I'm thinking 41, 42 should be the A grade, and we should just lock in a B grade under 40.
The problem is Navy's only had 2 games this season go under that number, and they were both against other teams that run the triple option. And so it's I don't know.
Does Delaware run the triple option?
Yeah, I believe.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
think
sure. I was going to say, is Temple any better than Delaware?
No, well,
they are probably.
Yeah, they are, but maybe not by much. But they are. Man, I don't know. I get what you're saying, but I think Temple's offense is just really bad. Like, if you go through that list of the teams that Navy's played, have any of the offenses been as bad as Temple's? And no, the answer is no, and it's not even really close.
That's what I'm saying. Temple's offense is terrible.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's give it a B grade to under 40. Again, this is why we're doing what we're doing, because like I get so hung up on, I don't like overs. I don't like playing unders at numbers that are ridiculously low. And so sometimes, I just need that little push. So sure, let's give it a B grade under 40 here. And
then if we get to 41, 42, whatever, we'll revisit. Maybe we get the A grade. I don't think it goes up, but if it does, then we could give it A grade. At this point, I think it's worth the investment. But again, it's such a low number. I don't want to be over invested in it. And then we do have the A grade pick on Temple plus 14. The other one, Northwestern and Iowa, a total of 35.5.
Oh, this is awful.
We are playing the under in this for sure. 35.5.
Oh my God.
There is no way this game gets over this number unless there are like 7 turnovers. And look, Iowa's involved. It's possible, but I'm going to take my chances. This is gambling for a reason. I'm going to gamble that there are not 7 turnovers. Northwestern is not going to be able to score off of Iowa. No. And Iowa just can't score in general. Like,
their offense can't score.
Their offense can't score. Their defense can. Their defense might do it. But I mean, I feel like we have to be on this under. I don't know what a key number is down here because we don't talk about these numbers. 34, I guess, is a key number. 35-ish. We're above whatever it is. We have to be on this under 35.5. What do you say?
Sure. Why not? Let's live a little, I guess.
I feel like the same thing, though. B grade on the under just because it's a really low number. But I do think it's worth an investment.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what it's ever going to get to an A grade under. There's no point talking about it because this number's not going to go flying up because who in the world in the right mind would be betting this over?
Exactly.
Iowa is an 11-point favorite. Sideline says it should be Iowa minus 16. Northwestern actually gained a little bit this last week based off of a fairly impressive performance. Iowa kind of hung in there where they were. I mean, they didn't really stand a chance against Ohio State. What does that mean, right? That doesn't really tell us anything. So, the question is, can Iowa beat anybody by 11 points? I think Iowa's the right side. It's Iowa or pass. The question is 11 an investable number or do we need 10?
So I think I would lean towards laying the points with Iowa for 2 reasons. Number one, and you already mentioned it, I don't know if Northwestern is going to score, period. So that's the first part of it. The second thing is that Iowa's special teams and defense is good for like at least 8 points themselves. So if I can get a field goal from Iowa's offense here, which maybe I feel like I can, then yes, they could win this game 11-0, or maybe it gets really crazy and they win like 13-0. I think
that would just be wild.
Yeah, so I think I would lean towards laying the points with Iowa.
What number do we need for a B grade? Can we get 11 at a B grade, or does it need to be 10?
I think it needs to be 10 because, and I mentioned this in our Discord that we're going to be telling our grandchildren about this Iowa offense. Like, it is just so bad. I mean, just so incredibly bad. I'm sure there have been offenses probably even as recent as like last year or the year before that were this bad. But man, there are just none that come to mind. The level of ineptitude that this offense just shows week in and week out, it's truly stunning.
I'm good with that. So officially, and we'll wrap this game up, but I do want to say one more thing about Iowa in general. But for official plays here, we've got a lean on Iowa -11, so a C grade pick. If it gets a 10, that jumps to a B grade. We're going to go under 35.5. It's a B grade, and there's just no point talking about an A grade under because the number's never going to get there. The last thing I want to say before we move on to the next one, talk about Iowa, talk about Virginia, are two teams that, for different reasons, right? Iowa's offensive ineptitude has lasted for almost a decade now, probably. This is just the worst of it. And Virginia, obviously, just a very different situation, but just coming from what they were coming from, having such a talented quarterback that was able to slice and dice his way down the field. And then now this, you do wonder every week watching them, is this the week that they figure something out, that they change something, that they change the personnel, that they change the scheme, that they introduce certain plays, that they like Clemson kind of last year, finding the running back to really get them from bad to decent, right? Whatever it may be. You just wonder every week, is it going to be, and every week so far this year, no. And it's, I don't know if depressing is the right word, but you just think, you're just kind of like, I think time's running out. I just don't think it's going to happen. It's kind of sad because you hope for success for people. You want people to be successful. We always like rooting for success for people, not failure, right? And it just doesn't seem to happen for Iowa or Virginia. I just keep thinking maybe this is the week, and it just doesn't happen. It's pretty impressive, or again, depressive, depending on which way you want to look at it. But hey, we can profit off the under. So there you go.
And this has to be like the ugliest, worst, least attractive game between two Power 5 teams this season, right? Like can't be close. It's got to be this one.
It's the ugliest game between two Power 5 teams where one of them will make a bowl game. Is what I would say, because you could argue that like maybe there's some matchup that we're missing, like Arizona doesn't play Vanderbilt, right? But like there's might be some game like that, right? Or some like a Georgia Tech or a Boston College, one of those teams play. There might be one other one that's bad, but both those teams are going to go like 2-10, right? The fact that Iowa is probably going to make a bowl here.
And Arizona is disqualified because there could be 80 points in that game.
They're fun.
So,
yes, they're fun. Yes.
They're fun. So, but Georgia Tech, Boston College, that was a good example. That is another one.
3:30 Eastern at North Texas and Kentucky. On to games you do want to watch. Western Kentucky's a 9-point favorites in this one. Sidelight says Western Kentucky -13.1. I think Western Kentucky at single digit seems a little bit short to me. Total is 7. And look, I think that total is a little bit short too. I know that North Texas burned us on the total last week. I was on the Western Kentucky under last week, actually. That was because it was UAB. That was because I felt like Western Kentucky was more of a team that was going a little bit slower based off of who they were playing. This one should be a shootout, but we got so burned last week on the North Texas one. But 70 seems a little bit short, right? Shouldn't this be 73, something a little bit higher? What are your thoughts on this one?
Western Kentucky overs have not done as well this season as you would have anticipated, but I will accept that maybe the UTSA North Texas game was just kind of a blip on the radar. North Texas can get back to apparently the way they want to play games, playing games into the 70s and 80s. So I can give a B grade on the over 70 here. And I completely agree. I want to lay the 9 points with Western Kentucky. I really like what I've seen from them this year. It's one of those things where, okay, maybe you don't feel great about the total being at 70 or whatever, but I think what Western Kentucky has shown us this season is that no matter how the game plays out, they can find a way to win it. And I don't think North Texas is good enough to keep it close, regardless of how the game plays out. So I really like playing laying the 9 points, with Western Kentucky. So is that an A grade for you then? I think I would give it an A grade.
All right, so we'll go A grade, Western Kentucky -9. On the total, here's the before we lock in a total play, here's the question that I want to ask. Are we concerned at all? North Texas played UTSA this last week and seemingly decided we've been playing all these games in the 70s and 80s, and now we're playing a team that can score. We want to slow it down. Is there any concern that that same thing happens here and that 70 is too high based off UNT zigzagging? If UNT plays, that's the thing I think we have to ask ourselves. Was last week an aberration? Was it bad football? Was it just, the conditions, the whatever, the travel, who knows, right? The
Right.
guys just missing routes, that sort of thing. Or was that North Texas saying, hey, we can't outscore them. We can outscore those other teams. And so we have to play a different style of football. That's the question that I want to know on this one, because if this is, I think really you answer that, it actually tells you what to play, because 70 is right at a key number here. Mm-hmm. And I think if you say that's an aberration and North Texas is going to get back to their old ways, I think you say over 70 in a heartbeat. If you say North Texas is going to come up with that same game plan, which is like drive this game into the ground because they can't outscore them, then I think you're happy with under 70. Mm-hmm. Do we have any feel for that whatsoever?
I don't have a feel for that one way or the other. No. I would just say, man, if North Texas was going to change their stripes at this point in the season, that was a hell of a performance.
It was
like the first 6 or 7 weeks or however many it was, because they definitely had me fooled with how they were playing games. So I don't think I'm ready to hop off after one game is kind of what I would say. So.
And just a quick look at that, North Texas did still pass for 325 yards. They still only ran the ball, looking at this, 17 times. So they still were 31 passes. So, I mean, they still were passing the ball a lot. And so based off of that, I kind of tend to agree. I think I'm with you. I think let's go B grade on the over. I'm kind of just putting that out there as in maybe they're going to, so that way we've kind of thought about it. It's on the record here, but I don't think that's the case. I really do think that it's hard to just all of a sudden do that. They still were passing the ball. If they do that against Western Kentucky, it should be a higher scoring game. And I think that last week was an aberration, but only a B grade because I'm just not that confident in it. But I do think this number should be 73. I'm just surprised at 70.
Well, so what about the spread then? Do you think it should be an A grade on the spread, or do you think it should just be a B grade?
Personally, I would say B grade, and I would say A grade at 7.
Okay, let's go B grade then.
All right, so this was a fun one. We're gonna go B grade, Western Kentucky at 9. If it gets to 7, it'll be an A grade. I don't think it will. I do think you're right that Western Kentucky just finds ways at this point. They're really impressive. They're a lot of fun to watch. That could mean they win by 14, 10, 7. I don't really know what it means. North Texas is such a weird team. I don't want to be over-invested in them. And let's give the over a B grade. And again, I don't think if we're talking about an A grade, because if North Texas it's more about the volatility of if North Texas does come out play a really weird style of football, this game could land in the low 50s. And at that point, there's no number that makes it worth an A grade.
Right.
But I think it's a B grade really at 70. I don't think it's a B grade at any other number higher than 70. Really, I think that's kind of as high as I want to go.
Yep.
All right, 3:30 Eastern, SMU at Tulsa. SMU is a 3-point road favorite here. Sideline says 5.3. Got SMU ranked 51st, Tulsa ranked 83rd. I just don't believe in this Tulsa team.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not much more to it than that. I think SMU can go on the road and win by 3. I like SMU. I think 3 is a great number. I think we should be laying the 3 with SMU. Total is 67.5. What do you have for us?
I definitely think we should be laying the points with SMU as well. I kind of mentioned this last week, and somehow SMU ended up covering that game against Cincinnati, where it felt like they were outside the number almost the entire game.
Cincinnati kicked like 7 field goals or some ridiculous number. 5 field goals, I think it was.
And you talk about repetible things, and that you got to think that Cincinnati more times than not is going to come away with more points in the red zone than what they did last week. I think SMU is a fairly straightforward team in my opinion. When they're playing, above average teams and better, they're going to have a hard time. If they're playing teams that are just slightly less talented than them, I think they're going to, be able to win pretty handily. So I think lay the 3 points with SMU in this spot. I don't think that Tulsa is the type of team that can keep up with SMU, even though it's going to be homecoming for Tulsa. Sorry, should have picked a different team for homecoming. Yeah. Yeah. So I say let's give a B grade to SMU, laying the 3 points with them. The total here, man. Tulsa has gotten into a lot of high-scoring games this season. And so my initial gut instinct would be to play the over in this spot. What do you think on the total?
I need to compose myself for you suggesting an over at 67.5.
Yeah,
That
it's just
blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, goodness, that freaking Tulsa, Wyoming game had 77 points. Northern Illinois and Tulsa had 73 points. Ole Miss and Tulsa had, I don't know what that was, 62 points. The Navy game, freaking 74
but we
points.
just saw the Temple game. That's like, I can't get that out of my head. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. And then we've got the Cincinnati game against Tulsa earlier this season where it was only 52 points. So I could definitely see that being the case here too. Look, you're never going to have to try very hard to talk me out of an over at 67.5. So let's wait until 65. Good. That's plenty of clearance. If it got to 65, we could play the over at that number.
Okay, I'm happy with that. The thing about that Temple game, so I watched that game. Tulsa ran the ball a lot, and
they did.
If they run the ball a lot against SMU, everything has to. People always talk about, to get to a 70s, like everything has to go right. If you've seen Arizona play this year, everything doesn't have to go right. If you've seen Oregon play this year, everything doesn't have to go right. That Oregon UCLA game had everything go wrong, and it got into the 70s. So that's wrong. There's not this like, if it's 70s, everything has to go right. But if it's in the 70s and you have teams that run the ball, everything has to go right because you are going to end up with a lot of 2-yard runs. You're going to have a lot of big runs too. But unless they're just, unless they're the Nebraska triple option of the 80s, right? Or, 80s and 90s, we're getting early 90s, getting 17 yards of pop, that sort of thing. Things have to go right. So that's my fear with this Tulsa thing is if I saw them run the ball so much, and if they do that against SMU, it feels like a high scoring game still might land right at like 65, 66, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
So we'll hold off on the over. We're kind of leaning that direction, but we need a little bit better of a number. We'll lay the 3 with SMU. Look, I think this is an A grade -3. My take is this: SMU. They hung with Cincinnati, and I get that the game was at home, but they hung with Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I feel like Cincinnati is a lot better than Tulsa. I just don't believe in this Tulsa team at all. I think Cincinnati's quietly pretty good. Obviously not, as good as they were last year. I think Cincinnati's a pretty good team. And I know this is flipped home and row, but I mean, I just think this number should be higher than a field goal. So I think it's a great number. I think it's a reasonable play. I think -3 is an A grade for me.
Let's do it.
All righty. So A grade play on SMU -3, holding off on the over for now. Oregon and Cal, 3:30 Eastern. This Oregon team just continues to impress. They are now up to 6th in my rankings. You talked earlier about, some of those top teams or whatever. I think Oregon is at least trying to establish themselves right above that. I don't know what to do with a lot of you teams. Looking really good. Should have an easy win here at Cal, coming off of a big win, of course, but not a look-ahead spot. At least a Cal team that just isn't that good.
Nope.
I think that this game plays out very similar to the Washington game, with the exception that Oregon's a lot better than Washington.
Yes, so we can definitively say that.
Yes, and so when I see that game play out, I'm like, Cal was able to score 21 off Washington, and defensively, I'm not sure Oregon's that much better than Washington defensively. I think they're probably fairly close. It's probably rounding error. I think Cal can put up some points, but Washington getting 28, Oregon's going to put up 45. I mean, I know that we talked about with Cal this year. We see what happened with Cal Arizona. Arizona put up whatever it was, 50 points on them or something. Oregon's going to put up 50 as well. Like Oregon is just going to score at will. I think California can score some points. I think this total is really low. It's about the same total as Washington, but I mean, you're taking the same two teams, but you're making one of them have a much better offense. Like I don't understand this total. I want to go over 57. I want to lay the 15.5. Sometimes it should be 19.4. I like both of those a whole lot. So what is your take?
I think you laid out everything that I was thinking on this one very well. No need to belabor the point. Let's go double B grades on the over and laying the 15.5 with Oregon. I've been impressed with Oregon, and I talk more than once on this show about how I'm this close to being done with certain teams. Can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm this close to believing in Bo Nix. I mean, I'm pretty close. Yeah. You're close. So, and if he plays anywhere close,
you're dead right.
If he plays anything close to the way he's been playing, Oregon covers this game, and this game gets into the 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your buy point for the over 55 for an A grade?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. We'll go B grade over 57. If it gets 55, I don't think it will. I can't see why it would. If it does,
yep.
Then that would be hopefully it does. Hopefully people look at the Washington thing and say it'll play out similarly. I don't think it will. I think Oregon's offense is just that much better than Washington. We saw Washington move the ball, but the difference with Washington moved the ball really well the first 3 times, came away with 6 points. Yeah. Oregon's offense is good enough. Other than that, like first half against Washington State, that was so bonkers. They put the ball in the end zone all 3 times. And like you said, this game gets in the 60s easily. So maybe it does go down. Maybe we're lucky, but B grade over 57, A grade if it drops to 55. Oregon minus 15.5. What's the reason for that not to be an A grade? Is it because we want to we need 14? Is it coming off of UCLA? Is it just a really large number? I really love backing Oregon. I think they just smoke them.
Well, so I think coming off the UCLA game, yes. I also just think of it feels like this was more than once. Maybe it's just one time, and I'm just reliving it in my head. But I feel like I've seen a good Oregon team go to Cal more than a couple of times and come away with either a loss or a really short win, a lot shorter than we would have expected. I mean, but that's the only thing that's keeping me from that. It's nothing. It's nothing that's happened this season. It's stuff that's happened in the past. So I probably should be with you and make this an A grade. Because again, there's nothing that I've seen this season from these teams that would make me think Oregon couldn't cover this number comfortably.
All right, so can we do A? Is that you officially
let's give it an A grade? Yeah.
All right, it's a sizable edge according to the model, and I don't see any reason why the model will be off here. I think maybe you're looking at – I just don't see it going to 14. If it does, again, there's been some weird line movements. We just love it even more at 14. But to me, this feels more like – you're on the right side of 17, but in reality, I think you should just be on the right side of 20. I think 20 and 21 are your 2 most likely outcomes on this. Cal's respectable enough, and their defense is good enough to not let Oregon score 60, right, by themselves.
Right.
So I don't see Oregon really winning by 45, that sort of craziness, but like Oregon winning by 3 touchdowns is completely reasonable. I don't think anybody would be surprised about that. That's kind of what I think will happen. So, A grade for us at Oregon minus 15.5, B grade over 57, A grade if it gets to 55. 3:30 Eastern, Illinois at Nebraska. Illinois is a 7-point road favorite. Sideline here says Illinois minus 7.5. Sideline is Illinois ranked 25th. Another one of those teams just consistently rising in the rankings every single week. Nebraska has leveled out at 67th, settling in as mediocre. Total's 51.5. Illinois, Nebraska, I feel like is not the team to drag Illinois into a high scoring game. Nope. Illinois, this feels like a game that they can exert their will, which is run it down your throat, pass when needed, and be very efficient and good when passing, but also more so just run it down your throat and control the clock, control the game, get that suffocating defense out there. This total feels way too high. This feels like a game that Illinois wins like 24-10, right?
And let's remember that this is the same head coach who when he was coaching at Arkansas played Texas in a bowl game and talked about it being borderline erotic, getting to take a knee like inside the 10-yard line just to like run out the time at the end of the game. Yes, I completely agree with your assessment of this.
Yeah. I think it's lay the points with Illinois or pass. I still don't think Nebraska's very good. If you're a Nebraska fan, your soul has got to be like dead at this point. I'm sorry for you. I know some Nebraska fans, my condolences. Like, this is a rough time. If you're a fan of any college team, any sports team, you've been through this. We've all been through it. We can all relate. It's not fun times. I mean, I'm not saying that there won't be any atmosphere, that there'll still be fans there, but I mean, it doesn't feel like it'll be the same type of crowd. I couldn't get behind this Nebraska team. I want to lay the 7 with Illinois. The question is, what grade do we give that? And I want to go under 51.5. Same question. What grade do we give it? What do you got for us?
I would give the under 51.5 a B grade just because it's so close to 52. Want to wait and see if it goes to 52. I mean, I don't know why it would, but I believe, and let me double check this. I believe this opened at 51, and I played it under 51, and I saw that it went to 51 and a half. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I missing? Yeah. So I got it at 51. It has since gone up to 51 and a half. So let's go under 51 and a half with a B grade. If it gets to 52, we'll make it an A. If this goes back down to 51, that's fine. Let's give it an A grade at 51 as well.
That's what I was going to say. I was just going to say, I was like, to me, it's an A grade either way.
Yeah.
This is we're only going to put 2 units on it right now. Hold back that third one in case it gets better. But if not, we still want that third unit on the under because we still think this game does not sniff the 50s.
Yep, okay. Definitely agree. And if you feel so led to make this a B grade on Illinois, then let's do that. I think Nebraska is not very good. Like you said, what do they have left to play for? What do they have left to be excited about? I think that, there's not much there. And Illinois obviously is kind of on cloud 9 at this point. I think you're going to get a really tough game from them week in and week out. I think their style of play is going to travel. And so if you think that this should be a B grade, then I'm with you.
I think we can give it a B grade at 7.5. I think I don't think it does. I don't think it's investable, but at 7, I think it's worth the investment. So I'm gonna go B graded with Illinois. I think the thing that gets me there to this as a B grade is the fact that, and we heard about it. We've heard a lot about it with Kansas, with the new coach coming in, the excitement or whatever, and a lot of other coaches have talked about the difference between this Kansas and Kansas from a few years ago. It's even from last year, it's not even so much the talent. Like, they don't really still have a lot of talent there. It's the effort. They're all playing in unison. They're pulling the same direction. It's all of those intangible things that you talk about with motivation. It's so hard for us to see this from the outside. So a lot of times, like, we can't put that in the model because we don't know those things. We're not in the locker room. We're not seeing all those things. It's more about we just see it on the field. And a lot of times the results on the field show those things. And so we can take those results and then put them in the model. We don't need to add anything else to it. Right. But when you're talking about season-long things, you do have to wonder, like, this is the type of game where Illinois, things are going right. Every player's going to be excited to play every single play. For Nebraska, you have to wonder about that. And that can make a difference in how a game plays out if there's just a little bit of lack of effort this week in practice because it's just playing out the string. Obviously, Nebraska is, trying to win and make a bowl game, but it's just, like you said, Illinois is on cloud 9. Everything's going their way here lately after that loss early on in the season that we're still bitter about. And those type of things make a difference. And so that's why I think it's worth the investment here at 7 Illinois. So we'll go B grade Illinois -7, and we'll go under. We're going to say the under is an A grade. We're going to put 2 of our units on it right now, hold off on the third one, and just kind of track the number and see if we can get a better number. If not, that's okay. We still love the under either way in this one, as long as it's a 50-something.
Yep.
Oklahoma State, Kansas State, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Kansas State, I assume they're going to have their quarterbacks. They had one get hurt at the beginning of the game, one get hurt in the middle of the game. He looked great, and he comes back. Yep. I assume they're going to have a quarterback. Will Howard looking fantastic. Kansas State, just apparently the place to go if you're a retread transfer. Just go to Kansas State and your career will be revived, apparently. He was just dropping dimes against TCU. Oklahoma State, I assume they'll have a quarterback. Who knows if Spencer Sanders is going to practice this week, but it didn't seem to matter. It's Texas. 2 teams that look pretty good. Sideline has Oklahoma State 12, Kansas State 21st. Sideline says Oklahoma State -0.9. It's OSU -1. I think this line is priced perfectly. I want to talk about the total, 58. Oh boy, I love this over. I think there's this perception of Kansas State as a team that's like a defensive and going to run it down your throat team, and Kansas State can do that. But when I watched the Big 12 this year, there's only one team that really I say that about. That's Iowa State. When you look at Iowa State, what they did against Texas, bringing them down to a lower scoring game, that Kansas game, which was so bizarre. Iowa State's the team that does it this year. Kansas State will go out and just sling it around. You saw it against TCU. We've seen it when Kansas State against Oklahoma putting up all those points. Kansas State's just a fun team, and I think the perception is off on them. This total is way too low, in my opinion. I love this over 50. We talk about Oklahoma State. They play with their pants on fire. I mean, they just go. I mean, and their defense isn't that good either. I love this over. I don't care about the side at all. I just want an A grade over 58 on this one.
Yep. Okay. Let's go A grade on the over 58. You don't have to, I mean, honestly, you're not going to have to work very hard to sell me on an over on any Big 12 game this season. So let's give an A grade there. And I'm with you. Game seems well priced. Maybe you get some news on some quarterbacks on either side of this game that maybe makes you change your mind a little bit on the spread. But as of right now, you've got nothing. I don't know. I guess I would lean towards Oklahoma State because I feel like for sure Sanders, or not for sure, but I feel better about Sanders is probably going to play. Whereas who's going to play for Kansas State? So I guess I would lean towards laying the point with Oklahoma State if I had to.
All right, so we'll go with a lean on Oklahoma State -1. I think it's really well priced. I don't think it's worth investing in. I'm not sure that'll change throughout the week. I don't think the number moves enough to really make. I just think focus on the over. 58 is way too low for these two teams. This probably goes over in the middle of the third quarter, and then we can coast the rest of the way and watch other games.
Yeah.
7 p.m. Eastern, Coastal Carolina at Marshall. Marshall is a 2.5-point favorite. Sideline says it should be 6. This is a sizable edge on Marshall. I've got them ranked 56th. Coastal Carolina 76. Coastal Carolina 6-1 on the season, but it's a very deceptive 6-1. Not really a lot of impressive wins there. Kind of some disappointing games. Marshall 4-3, but of course a much tougher schedule. So I just think Marshall's a better team at home. I think we're going to lay the 2.5 with Marshall. Total is 54.5. Marshall's been such a good under team, and Coastal's been kind of surprisingly a team that kind of plays with you. If you go under, they want to go under. If they go fast, you go. They go. You go fast, they go fast. So the question is just, how do we feel about the 54.5 versus obviously 155? Give us your take on this one.
I think that the under is the right play here, just because I think that Marshall, man, they just seem to be able to pull every single team they play into a defensive struggle. And, we talk about McCall, the quarterback for Coastal Carolina, how good he is. But the thing is the offense just hasn't been what it's been in past seasons this season. Yep. And so I think you're just a tick off of a key number there. And this is kind of killing me to say this, but I'm not sure this gets up to 55. I think this is going to be coming down throughout the week. So I want to lock in a B grade on the under 54.5 right now. If it goes to 55, that's great. I think I probably want to get the third unit on it regardless of where it goes. So if we start seeing it going down to 54, 53.5, sure, let's throw the third unit in at that number. But definitely want to lock in the B grade here right now. I also want to be on Marshall for all of the reasons that you just stated. So for you, would you make this an A grade or a B grade on?
I would make it an A grade at 2.5. I think it's a B grade at 3. I think it's 2.5. I think it's an A grade. And the reason why, I think there's a misperception about these two teams. I think people are writing off Marshall beating Notre Dame as a fluke. And obviously Notre Dame's still a better team. They should not have won the game, right? If they play that game 20 times, Marshall doesn't win at 10, right? But I think there's just this line is priced as if these two teams are even. And I think there's this Coastal's got a better record and Coastal was good in years past. And I think that's just biasing this line. This number should be 3.5, 4 easily. The fact that it's 2.5, I just think there's tremendous amount of value on it. So I'm going to give it an A grade and say, hey, viewer, take it, run with it at less than 3. If the number goes up like I think it will and you feel like it, you can try to play for a middle later. We think it'll be low scoring, so it could easily land on 3 or 4. So if it gets up to 4.5, you can play for a middle. You got options, but I just think 2.5 is a steal. So I just want to take the value and run. So it'd be an A grade for me at 2.5. And it sounds like we're going to play this one the same way we're going to play the Illinois-Nebraska game. We're going to go ahead and put 2 of our units on the under 54.5. We do want a third on it. It's an A grade under, but we're going to hold off that third unit just in case it does get to 55. If not, we will lock it in at 54, 53.5, something like that.
Yep. Sounds good.
All righty. 7 p.m. Eastern, Southern Cal at Arizona. Boy, that total 75.5.
And it has come down. It opened up at 77 and it has come down.
All I'm going to say is don't play the under, people. That's all I'm going to say. Don't play the under. Arizona is playing games in like the 80s and 90s. They laugh at the 70s. Southern Cal is ranked 9th according to Sideline. Arizona 89th. That's a large discrepancy between these two teams. Sideline says it should be USC minus 20.5. This to me is very reminiscent of the Oregon game against Cal. I just think this number should be a whole lot higher. I think the discrepancy between a couple of these top teams in the Pac-12 is wider than it's ever been in years past. I have a lot of respect for USC. I don't think they are national title contenders just yet. We talked about all that talent they brought in. They're a pretty good team, right? They're gonna look for the ball on defense, and that's going to give up a lot of points, but they're going to get a couple turnovers. They're going to randomly get a stop or two, and I just don't see Arizona stopping USC at all. USC has shown to be a team that against a good defense can struggle, but against a bad defense will put up a lot of points.
Yep.
I'm not sure USC gets stopped. They get enough stops to win this one by more than 15, in my opinion. So I like laying the 15 with Southern Cal. And at 75.5, I mean, I think over's the right play, but I just
nope.
I don't think I can do it.
No, even I would have to stop you from yourself on that one if you wanted to go over that number. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this. I think your breakdown of this game is pretty good. Let's give a B grade laying the 15 points with SC.
All right. And I think to me, A grade 13.5, A grade 14.
I think I would say 14. I would say 14. I was going to say 14, but just because like who's getting a stop in this game, right? And this should be
I agree. I think the difference between this one and the Oregon game to me is Arizona's offense is good enough to it be like one of those tennis matches at Wimbledon or at the US Open where we get the hard surface there. At Wimbledon, we've seen a lot of these where it's like guys just can't get breaks. And I think that's the same sort of thing. I think USC will get a stop or two, will get a turnover or something like that, but Arizona's just going to put up a lot of points. And so it's like knowing how much they're going to score, it's going to be hard to win by that third touchdown. Whereas Oregon, I think, is just so much better than Cal. I really like what I've seen from Oregon this year. I think that Cal's going to struggle to get out of the way and score enough to hang in there with Oregon. Whereas like Arizona, I feel like Arizona would score on anybody at this point. Like they're just such a fun offense. Their just defense is garbage. So USC may not get stopped, but if Arizona gets a ton of scores too, it's not impossible. I think Southern Cal still wins by 21. I just think I really want that 14 for the A grade for this one. So we'll go B grade at minus 15 for USC. If it gets to 14, that'd be an A grade. And like I said, I think it's over or pass, but I think we're going to choose pass unless it comes down. If it comes down to 73, I feel like we'd have to go over 73, right? If it does.
Sure. Why?
All right.
Why not?
If it gets to 73, then we'll just thank our lucky stars. I don't see why it would. These two teams are Arizona's again playing in the 80s and 90s. It just doesn't seem reasonable for this to keep coming down. 7 p.m. Eastern, UAB at Florida Atlantic. UAB is a 5.5 point favorite. Sideline says it should be 9.2. I've got UAB ranked 60th, Florida Atlantic 100th. I think it's enough of an edge to play UAB. Total's 48. Do we think UAB, how confident are we that UAB can win by a touchdown is the question, and how do we feel about a number like 48?
Well, when you go look at UAB's schedule and the games they've won this season, when they win, it's not particularly close. And so I definitely think that UAB can win by a touchdown. I think it would probably be a B grade. You mentioned sideline makes it 9. I think, though, I would only feel so good as to give this like a B grade. Is that where you're at?
Perfectly happy with a B on this one. I don't think I think I would need it to be like 3.5 probably for an A grade, and I don't think we get to that number. I think UAB is worth the investment, but it's just not a big. 6 and 7 are just not as key. There's just not enough weight on the probability there for me to love 5.5 personally. So I think it's worth the investment. It's just not an A grade in my opinion.
Okay. I also say that we give a B grade to the under 48 here. You look at UAB, and they haven't had very many games go under this number, but they've played a bunch of teams with decent offenses and bad defenses as far as Charlotte, Middle Tennessee, Georgia Southern. And so really the only games that you can kind of look at that were maybe somewhat similar to this was Liberty. And then whatever happened in that Western Kentucky game last week, which wouldn't have thought, I thought maybe that one had a chance to go under, but wouldn't have thought that it would go as far under as it did, only being 37 points in that game. So I like the under 48 here. I would only give that a B grade. I think I would need, and I don't know exactly which number, but either 51 or 52 before I would give this an A grade on the under.
I'm a little surprised. Weren't we on the Florida Atlantic under last week?
Against UTEP under 51, yes.
And that hit pretty easily?
45 points in that game, I believe.
Okay. I was kind of thinking based off of that you'd have a little bit more liking of the 48. I figured I was expecting a harder pitch from you.
Well, 45 points and like UTEP's offense is not good. UAB's offense is better. Now you could say that UAB's defense is also better than UTEP's, but
for sure.
I just think that you might get in a situation where UAB puts up 31 and then you're kind of biting your nails there at the end of the game, how many points Florida Atlantic is going to get. So I think I'd only give a B grade at 48.
Okay. All right. So B grade under 48, B grade at UAB minus 5.5. 7:30 Eastern, kickoff Arizona State at Colorado. Arizona State's a 13-point favorite. Life from Arizona State. They did not get the win this weekend, but they hung in there, played valiantly. They'll get a much easier test to Colorado. Look, I think firmly on this, like, let's fade Colorado every week now for the rest of the season. They are absolutely terrible. Like I said, they didn't even sniff a cover against Oregon State this last week. And like I said, I think they got their win. They've partied hard, and they have nothing left to play for this season. They know they're not going to a bowl. They know they're probably not winning another game. Arizona State is fighting for a bowl. I don't think they get there. I think they really needed that Stanford win, but I think they're still playing hard. You have a new coach coming in potentially, so they know they need to make all the impressions on tape they can. I think we should be laying the 13 with Arizona State. Sideline says 17.6. Colorado ranked 121st. I mean, Arizona State's not nearly as good as Oregon State is, but I think they can go on the road and beat Colorado. I think they can go on the road and do what Cal couldn't do, because apparently Arizona State somewhat decent despite whatever the heck happened early on in the season with Herm Edwards. Sideline has them ranked 65th. I mean, I did not think we'd see them this high. I mean, if you would have told me after like the fourth week of the season that Arizona State was 65th, I would have said, you mean like 165th, and you started ranking FCS teams, right? But they're just a much better team. I think they can go on the road and get this victory handily. I think we should play the 13. Total's 47. What do you have for us here?
I agree. B grade on laying the 13 with Arizona State. And man, I think my buy point for the under would be 48. I think. Okay. I don't know. I just can't quite get there with 47. Like, Colorado is really bad, guys. I mean, Arizona State could put up 35 or something like that, and I would not be surprised at all. And I mean, Colorado's bad, but could they still get 13 points if Arizona State got 35? I think the answer is yes. So I think 48 would probably be my buy point on the under for this one.
Do you think that Arizona State's offense? How do you think Arizona State's offense compares to Oregon State's?
I think it's a touch better. A touch better. And I wouldn't even know if I'd say better. I think they call the game in a way that leads itself to potentially scoring a few more points. That's how I would say it. Okay.
That's what I was going to say is that, there were 51 points in Colorado, Oregon State. That one went over. I just think it's tough because I feel like Oregon State scored way too many points in that game. That would just surprised me that they got that many points off of Colorado. So I'm fine with that. We'll say 48 is our under by point. We're going to pass at 47. We're going to say Arizona State minus 13 is a B grade pick. I don't think there's an A grade number for me on this one. Nope. Arizona State's still too volatile.
Yep.
I don't think I just don't want to be. I just don't want that 30 on Arizona State unless you said like pick them, which is like something that's never going to happen.
Yeah. Nope. I completely agree with you.
7:30 Eastern, Baylor at Texas Tech. Happy butt week to all who celebrate. Sideline says that this one should be Texas Tech -1. They are a 2-point favorites. Total is 62. As a Baylor fan, I do not think they win this game. I've been mostly on Baylor this season. I think they've been undervalued for the most part. That's worked kind of sometimes. It hasn't worked kind of sometimes. They got the cover against Kansas. I saw concerns against Kansas, though, that were the same concerns I saw against West Virginia, the same concerns I saw against BYU, and the same concerns I saw against Oklahoma State, which is a team that is good and somehow just can't quite get out of their own way. And it's becoming an epidemic. It's becoming the same thing we talk about with Memphis, where Memphis plays these low-scoring games, is a low-scoring team, but then they're big play prone, and that's just apparently who they are. And it's becoming evident that this Baylor team just hasn't quite put it together yet. And when they do, I think the sky is the limit for them. I mean, obviously, they're not going to be as good as like Ohio State, but I mean, I think they will be a very good team, can compete with anybody in the Big 12 if they can put it together. But I just don't think they're there yet. I need to see it. They dropped a wide open pass in the end zone that could have really put the game away at the end of the first half against Kansas. Played with their food, let Kansas back in. all the mistakes in previous games, we don't have to go back through them again. Tech, on the other hand, is a team we talked about all season as a team who we've been waiting to put it together. We said we knew that they would get better defensively because of the fact that they have a defensive-minded coach. We said they get better offensively because they had all the talent there. They just had to put it together. And boy, did they ever put it together last week in a drubbing of West Virginia. Yeah. So I do not like my chances as a Baylor fan going into Lubbock and win. I think Tech wins this game. I don't think there's particular value. Right now, it's like Tech -2, but like -125 or something. So now I'm going to say lean on Tech, but it's just not worth investing yet. Let's see what the number does. Let's come back to this later in the week and see what happens. But I want no part of Baylor in this game. Lubbock's a very tough place to play, but I do want to go over 62 in this. I think 62 is a fairly key number, again, up in the 60s. Baylor has shown the ability to score lots of points. You saw the points they gave up against Kansas. That game against Kansas should have gotten into the 70s, basically, if it wasn't for a couple of the weird things. Yeah. If it wasn't for the refs completely missing 2 spots on a 3rd down and a 4th down for Baylor inside the 10, and Baylor dropping that touchdown pass. A failed 2-point conversion. There were just so many ways that game should have gotten.
Another example of a number on total that moved the wrong way all week. Why did that Baylor Kansas total keep moving down like it did? We pushed, but like you said, that game should have easily been in the 60s.
Easily.
And so just another example of numbers moving in a way that makes no sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I guess the answer to that one specifically is people were concerned about the wind, but again, we talked about the wind. You got to look at the direction of the wind. Wind does not affect totals. Wind to the side can affect totals, but also only passing offenses. In a situation like Texas and Oklahoma State, where Texas can run the ball all day, and Oklahoma State also can with Spencer Sanders running the ball, not going to affect it as well. So it's not as simple as it's windy. It means low points. You got to look more into it. So I want to go over the 62. I love this number. It's an A grade for me. At this number, any higher drops to a B grade. But yeah, the game last week should have gotten in the 60s. I think this one gets in the 60s. I think Tech's offense is better than Kansas offense, and I don't think their defense is enough better to stop Baylor. I think if Baylor had wanted to and kept playing and needed to, they would have scored more points. They should have scored more points. So I think Baylor can easily get into the 30s. I think Tech easily gets into the 30s. I think this game's more likely to finish around 70 or 80 points than 62. It's just 62 is a key number, so that's my threshold for an A grade over, and that's where I want it at.
100% agree with you. I want the over. You mentioned that we don't talk about these games beforehand. I texted you a few things that I was interested in, and I said, does the over in Tech and Baylor, does that strike your fancy? And you couldn't say yes enough times.
I could not.
And so, I'm all good with the over. It's whatever grade you want to put on it. I would endorse whatever that is. And I agree with you. Like on the side, I'm excited to watch this game because it's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be lots of points, but don't want to have to pick the winner.
Yeah, absolutely. Over 62 is A grade play for us then. Like I said, I would lean Tech, but again, right now I don't want to. It's just a lean. I don't want to be too invested in it. I want to see what the number does. If it gets high enough, there is a point where Baylor money line makes sense. If you can get massive plus odds, like I said, I don't like their chances to win, but if you get enough of a plus odds, it makes sense in a high scoring shootout type game. If it's Tech -2 and the odds are better, it makes more sense to lay the 2. It just I just want to see the number settle in. I don't like this -2, -125 business that it's sitting at right now. So I just want to hold off on the side, but we will look back to that later, maybe on Patreon, just because the number may settle here in the next 24 hours. And if it doesn't, I see something like, we can jump, but otherwise mainly focus on the over to get that in before it goes up. It should only go up because there should be more points in this game.
Yeah.
Going from my team to yours, 7:30 Eastern, Ole Miss at Texas A&M. I tweeted out the screenshot, of course, of your face and my face when Jake said he was going to play A&M against South Carolina. Look, I know that Ole Miss...
Clearly he doesn't watch the previous shows before he comes onto the show.
Well, maybe he does. If so, say hi in the comments, Jake. But Ole Miss let us down this last weekend in control of that LSU game, and then
and they weren't in control.
And they weren't. And that's what Ole Miss has done all season. I really felt like a game in that situation, this was the time to put it all together, and they didn't. Here's the thing, though, against A&M, I know this is in College Station, but against A&M, who we talked about, we just don't think they're a very good team.
Right.
If they have that stretch where they kind of fall apart, I don't think A&M is good enough to take advantage of it. LSU is on the other side of that. They did take advantage of it. Kudos to them. I don't think A&M will take advantage of that. 2.5, I think this is way too short. I think Ole Miss should be favored by a lot more. I still have Ole Miss at 14th in the ratings, despite that massive disappointing showing this last week. But I got Texas A&M at 32nd. This feels like a downhill season for A&M. If you're on Twitter and you see anything, there's a lot of funny jokes out there. Cousin Jared, you should stay off of that. For other people, go laugh. I would have laid it 2.5 with Ole Miss. Sidelines said it should be 3.4, and the total is 55.5. Feels like an under spot. It didn't work against South Carolina, but it felt like that was the right call. And you had the kickoff return for the touchdown. You had a bunch of turnovers in the wrong spot. Feels like Ole Miss. Feels like an under. What are your thoughts?
So B grade on laying the 2.5 points with Ole Miss. What I would say on the total.
And let me interject. I think another situation where you can't really get to an A grade unless it's like +3 or something stupid, because there is a lot of variability, a lot of variance here with both teams. Like I think it's worth the investment. Again, the B grades, I think it's worth the investment, but I just don't want to be over invested because like both these teams have been weird this season. And so it's like not worth the A grade. At any number, really.
I agree with that. On the total, okay, so I don't know this for sure. I'm wondering if Connor Wegman is going to get the start at quarterback for A&M. He's the true freshman, started out third string. Max Johnson has the broken hand, and then Haynes King hurt his. I don't know. I'm going to go with I'm not a doctor, but it looked like some muscle in his arm. He did dislocate his shoulder. He hurt some kind of muscle up here. He could barely throw the ball. Wegman came in. And, I was texting with my father-in-law, and, he was talking about, saying the normal father-in-law things when the game's not going the way that you would want it to. And I was like, look, the issue is not the players. The issue is the backup quarterback comes in and no receivers are running any further than 5 yards down the field still. So that's just the plays that are being called. There towards the end of the game, when they kind of turned Wegman loose, he was able to get him down the field pretty quickly, got in range for a field goal there or whatever.
To some extent, that was also a little bit of prevent defense from South Carolina.
Yes, knowing
that they could not allow a quick score.
Yeah. The A&M Alabama game, I like some of the different things that A&M did on offense that game. The problem is they had a bye week and they were like, well, those things worked against Alabama. We're not going to try to do anything different. And they ran these same new plays they ran against Alabama that were no longer new against South Carolina, and they didn't work.
And they were like, hey, we know what you're going to try now. If you're going to try something funny, we know what it is. Yeah.
So my thing here is that I think Ole Miss's defense may have some issues here, and I think Jimbo may get another kick in his butt to be like, hey, you may need to put some other plays in, and this time with maybe the most talented quarterback he has on the roster. I still think it should probably be under 55.5. But what I would say is it's only going to get a B grade and not an A grade, just because I think there is going to be some variability with the A&M offense. I think you could see some different things maybe that you haven't seen the whole season. It's probably going to end up in the same result, but I would just be, I would be lying to you if I just said that I had complete confidence that there's no way this game goes over, because I just don't know what you're going to get from the A&M offense this week.
Yeah, and I agree. And I like that we're under a key number here. We've got the hook on the key number, but that totally makes sense. And Ole Miss has played some weird games, so just some variability there as well. That their defense is good enough here probably to stop, even if it's revamped, an A&M offense that still isn't going to be that exciting, but enough variability that I'm with you. A B grade is sufficient. So B grade, Ole Miss -2.5, B grade under 55.5. And wrapping us up finally here at about almost the 2-hour mark. Midnight Eastern, Hawaii Island special, Wyoming at Hawaii. I've been on Hawaii a lot. I feel like last week I just gave my Hawaii pitch. Cousin Jerry, you were just like, yep, I like it. Sure. If you like it, I like it, because I've nailed Hawaii lately.
Yeah,
plus 10 against Wyoming team is showing some signs of life, potentially improving for sure. Wyoming's up almost out of the triple digits. They are ranked 104th, 5-3 on the season. Hawaii still at 126. Sideline says it should be 9.9. I think this is another situation where I expect a low scoring game, and I think taking the points with Hawaii makes sense, just like it has been previously. I think Wyoming probably wins. I just think in a lower scoring game where Wyoming runs the ball a lot, it's harder to get a lot of points. Hawaii's been more of an under team as of late. If
Yep.
this stays in the 40s, maybe even the 30s, harder to win by more than 10. So I think at 10, I like playing Hawaii and I like going under 50. What are your thoughts here?
I like the under 50 a lot. I think the only question is what kind of grade are we going to give it? I know that the Hawaii unders have been pretty easy to come by as of late, but I think that Wyoming maybe – can't believe I'm saying this. Wyoming's offense might be a little bit better than some of the other offenses that Hawaii has played recently.
That is a concern because Hawaii has played some very terrible offenses in this stretch.
Yeah. So I definitely want to go under 50. I think I may only give it a B grade though. And this is another one of those things where like playing Hawaii, kicking off at like midnight Eastern or whatever time it is. I just don't know if there's like a number that you could give me where I would give it like, okay. No, I'm lying. If it got to 55, I'd say it'd be an A grade under at 55, but there's no way it's ever going to get there. I think I would give a B grade to under 50. What do you think?
I would push for an A on the under and a B on the plus 10. And here's the reason why. A, everybody wants big plays on the last game of the night. But seriously, not because of that. We look at Wyoming. I agree that their offense is better than some of Hawaii's played, but they play relatively slow. You look at last week's game against Utah State. That game got to 42 simply because of a 2-point conversion. The week before against New Mexico, got to 41. Against San Jose State the week before, got to 49. Against Air Force, got to 31. Even against Northern Colorado, it only got to 43. The only games that have gone over are that wonky game against Tulsa, which we keep talking about. It's still going to be the most random talked about game this season on the show. And the BYU game, we talked about BYU is just terrible on defense. Yeah. I don't see how they get to 50. Hawaii's not the type of team to drag them up into that game, in my opinion. This is a better offense potentially, but again, it's one that just moves at a slower pace. So I still think to me, 48 is my A grade.
Yeah.
Under maybe 48.5 because maybe you want to win at 48, but that's to me the threshold where it's not an A grade. But I think B grade, Hawaii plus 10, and A grade under the 50 is how I would play it.
And I think maybe I need to look at it another way as well, that like Wyoming could win this game 38-10. You know, who says that Hawaii is going to score that many points in this game? And so maybe that's another way to look at it. So sure, let's give the A. Again, you're never going to have to try very hard to talk me into an A grade on the under. So let's give an A grade to under 50 and a B grade on Hawaii plus 10.
All righty. So that finishes up the longest episode we've ever had. We have just hit the 2-hour mark. So congrats, Cousin Jared, for making it through 2 hours of this.
Yeah.
Only one more episode this week because we talked about 2/3 of the games already. Do you have any party words, or have we talked you out already at this point?
No, we are completely talked out, and I'm glad that our friend Jake will be on the next show. Because we already spoke for 2 hours here, man. We really need somebody else to come through for us on this third episode and kind of give the viewers all sorts of different perspectives that we weren't able to give on these 2 hours.
Yeah, and I love that we'll have a little bit of time for that third episode too, because now all the numbers can move, and hopefully now the other ones will have things to talk about. Because I think the games we didn't talk about today were all of the games we'd have been like, it's well priced. So hopefully all those numbers move, and then we have good things to talk about for the rest of the games to make that episode worth watching.
And we know that there's going to be some movement between now and then on some of these other games. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of new things for us to talk about by then.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. We'll be back with you all week again with more sports betting content. But until we see you again, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can get your betting money, but please don't bet your any money.